Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. And how are you guys doing today? I'm doing great. I'm doing well. I don't even want to spend too much talking. I don't even want to spend too much time talking because I feel like today's case is actually it's a long one. So today we're going to be talking about the case of Miss Nikki Roberts. Now, although I did find this case online, and although the way the case was portrayed, like it seemed like a very sincere case, I think they used like alias names. I'll put the link of the video that I found all this information from, so I'll put the link down below. I do think though they use like alias names to make sure that we don't find out exactly who the person is, but the person who was referred to in this video is called Miss Nikki Roberts. Now, I have a few disclaimers before we hop into this case today. For today's case, we're going to be talking about voodoo. Voodoo. I don't know why I keep finding voodoo cases, but voodoo. We're also going to be talking about, like, you know, somebody betraying somebody else. So if you have, I know those aren't like major trigger warnings, but me, I don't like to take my chances on this here internet. Apart from that, I just want to say anything that I talk about in this video I found online. I will link the sources to this video, or the sources to everything that I say in this video, down below in the description box. Second of all, I mean no disrespect to anybody that I talk about in this video. And also, I live close to the road, so you may hear some cars passing. I have been trying, you guys know since last year. You guys who are subscribed to me since like beginning times, you know this audio has been such a big issue for me, and I'm just so tired. Anywho guys, without further ado, let's jump right into this video. Now, Nikki Roberts is a British woman who is from Norwich in the UK. Now, although not much is given as to her background, etc., I'm guessing because she wasn't born, you know, in Kenya. What we do know about Miss Nikki Roberts is that she was very much a girl who didn't like to live in the UK. She didn't hate the UK, but she consistently said like one thing she didn't enjoy about living in the UK is basically the weather, like the rainy, cold, gloomy weather. That's what she said, girl. If y'all want to give me a visa to the UK, I mean, I don't have a problem, you know, I don't mind. But she really didn't like the weather, and Nikki says that she always like fantasized about coming to Africa and living in Africa. Well, obviously not Africa, because Africa is a continent, but you get what I'm saying. I'm saying like basically anywhere in Africa. Miss Ma'am wanted to jackpot that UK very badly. Furthermore, another one of her dreams, she also wanted to own a nightclub. So Nikki wanted to move to Africa, and on top of that, the other dream that Nikki had is she wanted to own a popular, very successful nightclub. Now, like I said, Nikki always wanted to visit one of the African countries, and as such, when Nikki got a fiance, her fiance actually was that guy, because her fiance facilitated a trip for him and Nikki to be able to come to where? Nairobi, Kenya. Yeah, that's right. They came to Kenya, and instead of obviously staying in Nairobi, they went to Nairobi, then they went to Mombasa. So the two of them decided to take a little, you know, a little boo bae thing trip to Mombasa, Kenya. Nikki and her fiance Robin would get to Kenya, and they would spend their holiday in Kenya. Obviously, you guys are not giving you like timelines and everything, because like I said, this is like her telling her personal story. You get me? You get me? And Nikki says she loved it. She said she fell in love with everything in the country. She said she fell in love with the culture, the people, the food. She said she didn't even want to go home. She said all her dreams, like of moving to Africa, were just realized in Mombasa, Kenya. She said like this is where she wanted to be, and she didn't want to go home. However, her fiance Robin, he wasn't feeling the vibes. He wasn't feeling vibes on vibes. He was like, he misses the UK, and from what Nikki says, like Robin was a very like, he had like, you know, that national pride, etc., and he missed his home country. He wanted to go back home. Now, the problem is Nikki didn't want to go back home, but Robert wanted to go back home. So the two of them agreed that, look, we're gonna go back to the UK. And Robin said he's gonna go there, pursue his career and everything, you know, make his money, etc. And at a point, after they've like finished pursuing everything, they'll literally relocate to Kenya. Both of them agree this, and Nikki's like, okay, I mean, I don't want to go back, but if you promise that we'll come back together, then fine. I'll listen to you, let's go back home. The two of them would go back home to England. However, sadly, Robin would actually die in a motorbiking accident literally only a few weeks after they came back from Kenya. Robin was 47 years old when he died. Nikki goes into like a deep depression because she's literally just come from the holiday of her life with the love of her life. They've now decided what they're gonna do. She has all this like positive outlook for the future because she's been told she can go back to Kenya, and all of a sudden, nothing. So Nikki grieves obviously everything that has happened with Robin, etc., but she is in her 20s, and Nikki decides, like, I'm literally in my 20s, I'm young, I have energy, and with the insurance money that came from Robin's death, Nikki had enough money to be able to just like pick up and move to Mombasa, Kenya. Nikki decided she was going to leave everything in the UK and move to Mombasa. And what was she gonna go to Mombasa and do? She was gonna move to Mombasa and fulfill not only her dream of moving to a warmer place, like that had sunlight and everything, but she was also going to go to Kenya and start a nightclub business. Now, those of you that are Kenyan know that starting a business in Kenya is actually less like any other country. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. You have to know like where to start, what to do, and this is where like Nikki really got stuck. This is where like Nikki really needed help because she's a foreigner in a new country. She doesn't know where to go, who to ask for help, etc. But Nikki says, I'm gonna find out, I'm gonna figure it out. And she packs up her bags, takes her man's insurance money. She's now gone to Kenya. So Nikki would move to Kenya in the year 2000, and she would actually initially stay at the Watamu Resort. Now, before Nikki left the UK, she had actually used some of the insurance money to go out and buy like a state-of-the-art sound system in the UK because she wanted to buy the sound system from the UK and then relocate with it all the way to Kenya, right? Right. So she bought the sound system, and by the time she was arriving at Watamu Resort, she felt like, okay, I already have at least step one to my nightclub, because something essential for a nightclub is the music, right? Right. So after she's already gotten the sound system, she's like, what else do I literally have to do? All I need to do now is get a location for my club. Now, according to what Nikki said, she had actually come from a place, well, in the UK, where getting like all these permits, etc., you like just go to like a government office, and it was like, okay, like she knew what she needed to do to be able to get these documents. And I'm definitely not trashing my country, love my country, but the thing is, when you're in Kenya, there's like a lot of money that go into this kind of dealings. Like if you want to get, you know, these permits, etc., a lot of the time you'll have to know someone who knows someone who knows someone who wants money for the permit. Nikki didn't expect this. So she's come to Kenya with her sound system and everything, but she didn't like anticipate the cost of actually having to pay people who are going to put her in connection with somebody to be able to get the permit, and she didn't anticipate the cost of actually having to like, basically bribery. She didn't anticipate the cost of corruption. I said it. I said it. I said it. I said it. She said it, actually. I didn't say it. But she didn't anticipate the cost of corruption. And this is now step one, where Nikki's plan begins to fail. So because Nikki didn't know exactly where to go to be able to, you know, get either of these things, a permit or a business location, Nikki would rely heavily on a friend that she met on her initial visit with her now deceased ex-fiancé, Robin. Now, the friend that Nikki met, her name was Dorothy, and Dorothy was actually a Kenyan who was living in Mombasa. So she was a Kenyan actually living in Mombasa. Nikki approached Dorothy about being able to get a permit, and Dorothy told Nikki that she knew a lawyer that she could hook up so Nikki could be able to get the permit. So as Dorothy is telling Nikki this, Dorothy also informs Nikki that this is like not gonna be a cheap endeavor, because like the lawyer also has to pay other people, etc., whatever. Basically, she was trying to like nudge Nikki to just like let her know that, you know, we're going to have to give out kitu kidogo. You know, this is going to be an expensive endeavor for us to be able to get this permit. So Nikki asks, how much do you need, Dorothy? Dorothy says, we need 192,000 Kenyan shillings for a permit. Obviously, Nikki's like, damn, that's like 1,300 pounds. Like, I'm thinking about it in today's money, child. It was probably way more money in the year 2000. 1,300 pounds in the year 2000? That was probably bare bands. But Nikki says cool then, and Nikki gives out the money. And Dorothy says she was going to set her up, and that Nikki should just consider the whole permit business done, because that's just how Dorothy had connect with this lawyer. You know what I mean? And that's how much faith Dorothy had. After Nikki gives Dorothy the money, Dorothy and Nikki decide to just, you know, go out and enjoy themselves. And also Nikki wanted to study the scene, like the nightclub scene in Kenya, so she can be able to like know exactly what competition she's having, etc, you know, what are the hottest clubs, etc, etc. The two of them would decide to go to a club called Club Inferno. And this is where Nikki would meet a guy from Mombasa, Kenya, by the name of Moffet Ombogi. Now, Moffet actually knew or had heard about Nikki before Nikki was in the club. Like, he knew about her before he had seen her in the club. Apparently, Nikki was like the hottest baddie in town when she arrived in, you know, Mombasa. So Moffet says he had already heard about Nikki. So when he saw her like at the club, he was like, oh my god, this must be that white girl that everybody's talking about. And I'm not saying it in a racist way, please. Like, this must be her, right? Right. And so Moffet is eyeing Nikki. Nikki is seeing Moffet eyeing her, but she's like, she doesn't want, because she's just from, you know, the heartbreak with the death of her fiance. And so she's like giving up attitude. But Moffet said, you must be my baby boo. You must be my lover. Uku ni Kenya, my dear. Utaingia box. Utaingia box. Okay. So Moffet gets on the dance floor and he starts like doing he starts dancing behind other people. Like, you know when someone is dancing and then like there's someone behind them making fun of the way they are dancing? That's what Moffet was doing. So Nikki, like, he catches Nikki's attention and obviously she starts looking at him. Even you would look. Even you'd be like, Kwani, what's wrong with this guy? Like, what's up? And he was like making her laugh all the way from like halfway across the room, and it was honestly like, there was so much chemistry between the two of them. Moffet actually says like the second he lays eyes on her, like he laid his eyes on her, he was like, this must be the mother of my children. Wow, imagine that. That's so beautiful. Eish, that's so fucking beautiful, you know? Wow. Anywho, Moffet catches the attention, you know, they're smiling at each other, everything. Moffet now decides, you know what, this is my opportunity. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna talk to her and try and see exactly, you know, try and see if we have chemistry. Because in Moffet's, I don't even know why he went over there to try and see if they have chemistry. Because at the end of the day, he had already concluded this is the mother of my children. You know what I'm saying? And that's on her. So Moffet heads over to Nikki and the two of them start talking, hit it off. Now the two of them get into a very, like, the relationship was hot very quickly. Like, you know when yani people have fallen in love just Jana and they're already just like, he's the love of my life. Like, they met yesterday and he's the love of your life. So beautiful. Anywho's, the two of them are in this whirlwind romance. They used to go on beach walks on the beach. It was very much giving like Pocahontas, you know, walking by the river. You know, very beautiful kind of love, to be sincere. Now the relationship really advanced very quickly and the two would move in together like literally only a few weeks after meeting each other. Nikki says she knew, you know, he was the one for her, and he says from the moment he literally laid eyes on her, he was done, dusted, and locked into the relationship already. So literally, I don't see, actually, it makes sense that they moved in together so fast. But from what it seemed, Nikki was the one who was bearing a lot of the financial burdens of, you know, even when they moved in together. Like, it seemed like she was the one paying the rent, etc. Because like, as this story progresses and Nikki's money starts getting less and less, you'll see that Moffet really financially is nowhere to be helping. Financially is nowhere to be seen. But from what I can tell, both of them are living it up on her ex-fiance's insurance money. Both of them are living on that check. You get? You get. Not to talk disrespectfully about Moffet, but that's how it looks. I ain't gonna lie. Now, everything is going amazing for her in her love life, and things would honestly just become even better when Nikki received news from Dorothy that, you know, her lawyer friend had been able to get her a business permit. So she went and she collected the permit from Dorothy, and she would go to the place that she wanted to rent for the nightclub, and that's when she went to show them the business permit, and those people were like, this is fake. Fake. This is a fake document. Nikki is very confused, considering the fact that she just paid 192,000 Kenyan shillings to get that permit, and so she goes back to try and call Dorothy. Dorothy is not picking up. Dorothy is not picking up, and she's asking around for Dorothy. Nobody has seen Dorothy in days. Nowhere to be seen dead. Now Nikki is starting to panic, so she now, you know, calls her baby boo Moffet, and Moffet didn't even waste his word. Like, he didn't even mince words. Moffet told her, you've been scammed, honey. Yeah, wamechukua hiyo do, wameenda nayo, you're never seeing that money again. So Nikki is now at this point very confused, because according to Nikki, she says her and Dorothy were best friends. Like, her and Dorothy were just such close friends, and she just couldn't understand why Dorothy would do this to her. Nikki says she did like take a blow in terms of, you know, being able to trust people, especially considering the fact that Moffat kept on reiterating to her like, you can't trust Kenyans, you can't trust anyone here, people here will scam you, etc. And Nikki says that in so much as her friendship, like she did suffer like the trust issues, she still maintains that she didn't think all Kenyans were bad the way Moffat was saying, which is true. Also you, Moffat. You. So Nikki still says that she's still gonna have that element of trust. Maybe Dorothy was just like a bad apple, and she just took it at face value and moved on after losing 192,000 shillings. It's okay. Dorothy decides this is not gonna keep me down, and she decides to go and actually find someone to be able to help her with getting a permit. Nikki would get a new contact from the locals in the area she was living, and the guy that she was given, his name was Paul. Now, according to people, Paul knew a lot about like everything in terms of like the red tape of starting businesses, and in terms of like he was very well connected in Mombasa. So if they told her, if there's someone who's going to get this thing for you, it's Paul, honey. So they give her the contact of Paul, and Nikki gets in touch with Paul. Now, as soon as Nikki gets in touch with Paul, they meet up together, and Paul tells Nikki that if she really, like him, he can do it. Paul tells Nikki, I'm not a scammer, honey. I can get this permit for you. But the problem is, you have to give me 2,500 pounds. Hakikai. You have to give me 2,500 pounds for me to be able to get this permit for you. In addition to that, Paul also told Miss Nikki that he needed to give her, that she needed to give him her passport. Her passport. To be able to go and apply for this permit. Now, Nikki obviously had the trust issues from back in the day from Dorothy. But the thing is, like I said, Nikki decided that she was just gonna, you know, Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. And she decided, you know what, let me actually trust people. Just because Dorothy did me wrong doesn't mean other people are gonna do me wrong. Okay? Yeah. So she decides to trust Paul. She gives Paul the money, and on top of giving Paul the money, she also decides she was going to give Paul her passport. Now, Paul actually pulled through, surprisingly. He actually took the 2,500 pounds, that's around 360,000 Kenyan shillings right now. So I'm already anticipating back in the day, that was almost $1 million. I said what I said. I said what I said. So Paul takes the money, and he actually does deliver on his promise, and he brings Nikki back a permit and her passport as well within the next 2 weeks. Everything was going really good for Nikki because now she's able to go to the building owners and show them the permit so she can be able to like rent out a space for her club. So the next step is getting a space for her club. As Nikki is going around looking at locations for her club, she would also receive another package apart from the one that Paul had given her. Now, a few weeks after Nikki had received her permit from Paul and everything is going well in her life, she would receive a very weird package at her gate. Nikki actually received a package of skin and meat like wrapped up and bundled up together into like a little ball like this, and it was hung up on her gate. Now, Nikki would see this package from like inside the house. So she was standing inside the house, she looked up to the gate and she was like, what is that? And she saw it and she called Moffat. Her and Moffat would go and have a look at exactly what that was outside the gate. And the way Moffat's face changed, Moffat's face switched up and he was like... And Nikki, obviously, being European, didn't understand exactly, and I don't say that in a mean way, like I don't say that to discriminate against anyone. I'm just saying she wouldn't understand what exactly was happening. Nikki, obviously, not being a Kenyan and being from Europe, etc., and generally not being from Africa, she didn't understand the gravity of the situation of what she was looking at. Nikki looks at Moffat and asks what's wrong. Moffat isn't answering because Moffat is shooketh. So Nikki decides to walk to closer to the gate, and she reaches out her hand to be able to touch that bloody skin, meat, whatever package. And that's when Moffat let out a yelp to tell Nikki to stop where she stood and not to dare touch that package. Nikki was still very confused. She was like kind of laughing it off, like, what's wrong, Moff? Like, what's up? Ati Moff. Hey, me, I know this man, Ati Moff. But we're gonna call him Moff. That's a cute nickname, right? Right. But Nikki is like, what's up, Moff? What's up, babe? And everything. And Moffat takes Nikki inside to explain to her the gravity of the situation that's here. He tells Nikki that, look, you guys might not have this where you're from, but this is not a good sign. Like, this is a bad omen upon our house. Somebody is wishing bad for us, and we need to cleanse the house. You get? So Nikki is looking at Moffat, and at first she didn't like take it seriously, but as he continues to talk and as he continues to say all this, she started to take him, well, not seriously, let me not say seriously, but she decided to like go along with, you know, getting the house cleansed, etc., as he was saying, because she was like, okay, this is something that's very important to my boo. I may not understand the culture and everything, but if he says so, then fine. So she believes him and she takes him at face value. Now, as the two of them were deciding exactly like who to contact, etc., over the span of the next few days, more and more of these bloody, you know, meat wrapped, skin wrapped packages would arrive at their gate. And Moffat was getting like very angsty, like very uneasy, and it's at this point they decided to contact Paul, the guy who knew everything about everything and was able to get them a permit. So Paul is called by the couple, and Paul literally, even him, he had the same like reaction as Moffat, and I'm sure Moffat was actually feeling so seen. You know when you just feel so validated because like he gets it. Why didn't you get it? He gets it, honey. He gets me. But Paul literally came up to that house and told these people, if you guys don't get this stuff cleansed, like if you don't get your house and yourselves cleansed of this voodoo that these people are trying to throw on you, you're literally going to regret this for the rest of your lives. So Paul tells this to the couple, and obviously Nikki is now hearing this from a second person, so she's literally just like, whoa, like this isn't actually a joke, this is actually serious stuff. So Nikki asks Paul, where do we go and get ourselves cleansed? Like Moffat had said this thing, but you know, I don't know, where do we go and get this done? Paul says, don't worry, I'll organize where to get this done for you. You just sit back, try not to aggravate anybody. I'm gonna come back for you guys, don't worry. So over the next few days, Paul would call them and tell them he's going to come for them literally at night, like dead stark in the middle of the night. And he had apparently like organized for them a cleansing ceremony. The two of them were picked up from their house at night, and they rather ominously drove to the forest. And obviously Nikki is looking at all of this and she's just like, okay, I guess it's the culture or whatever. Like, you know, when someone is not from somewhere, they really go along with what's happening because it's like, when in Rome, I guess. And she can clearly see like Paul and Moffat are really disturbed by this, and so she's like, fine, let's do it, let's do the cleansing. But when they stop at the forest, Nikki is now looking around like, I don't know guys, it's the middle of the night. They hop out of the car as they've stopped in the forest. They hop out of the car when they're in the forest, and then Paul looks at them and tells them, from this point on, we're walking. They walk a few meters, I don't know, miles, meters, I'm not sure, she wasn't specific. They walk a little bit, and it's at this point that they walk to a witch doctor's entire like setup, like his entire place where he does his stuff. You know how they have it like in the, like, you know how they have like in Nollywood movies, they show you that the witch doctor is like in the bushes, etc. Yeah, that's basically what happened. And it was at this point that Nikki says that she really started to get very, very traumatized because things literally took a very serious 360-degree turn. So Nikki says the witch doctor that they were taken to was very hostile, number one, and he was also like looking very intimidating because, for one, he was like full on naked apart from like a loincloth he wore like on his private parts. On top of that, he says like he had slashings on his chest, which apparently were like for protection against like evil spirits from other like realms, etc. So Nikki felt very intimidated even by the appearance of the witch doctor himself. On top of that, Nikki says like the entire procedure that this witch doctor made them undergo to be able to be quote-unquote cleansed was very traumatizing for her. So Nikki would be told to get into like an open grave. So there was like a hole in the ground which is supposed to be a grave, and Nikki was told to get in there. Now, as Nikki is lying in the grave, the witch doctor then takes a live chicken and starts plucking the feathers from the chicken's body when this chicken is alive. So obviously this chicken is literally going AWOL, screaming in pain. The doctor then slits the neck of the chicken and lets the blood spill on Nikki as she's lying inside the coffin. Lastly, the witch doctor would tell Nikki that she also had to have her chest sliced the damn up so that she could also be protected against like all the bad spirits and all the evil spirits that, you know, could have been thrown at her through the people who were basically leaving all this stuff at her gate. Nikki would refuse to have herself slashed up. She said, I ain't doing that. Y'all can put blood and all, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Now, Nikki would say that this entire thing traumatized her so bad that she would genuinely consider going back to England, but she really loved Moffat, one, and two, she was just like, you know what, the curse is gone. She was like, I've already built my life here, let me just stay. So in the end, she decides to stay with her baby boo Moffat. But this isn't to say that she wasn't traumatized. Nikki says that over the span of the next few days, she really was going through the most. She was really traumatized from everything. Now, Nikki was facing an issue with regards to the club at this point, and that was the issue of finance. Like I told you guys, Nikki had paid 1,500 that was lost to Dorothy, and then the second time round she had paid, was it 3,000, I don't know, 3,200 or something pounds for her to be able to get the actual permit. So Nikki was really low on funds. She was also now paying her rent in the house that her and Moffat were living in. So Nikki had like all these burdens and all these stresses on her. So at this point, Nikki decides that she's going to find a way to look for money. The way she decided to do this was she was going to rent the sound system that she came with from the UK. She decided to rent her sound system to a local nightclub owner, and the person who put her in touch with the local nightclub owner was actually Paul. Remember Paul, the guy who got her the permit, also organized for her to go and have chicken sliced on top of her body? Yeah, that guy. So Nikki approached Paul, asked Paul for help. Paul got her in touch with a local nightclub owner who was looking for a top tier sound system so that he could be able to play it for his nightclub. So Paul puts them in touch. Paul is also the one who was supposed to deliver the sound system to this guy's house. So after Nikki concluded the deal, she told Paul, deliver the sound system to this guy's nightclub or his house or whatever. Nikki thinks this is all complete, this is all done. Only for a few days to go by, and Nikki is literally getting a call from the police station, and she's being told to come on down to the station. But the owner of the nightclub that she had gotten into a deal with for this sound system, he was down at the station talking about how she never delivered the goods. Nikki is very pissed off, understandably, because to her understanding, she completed every single thing she had been asked to complete, period. So Nikki literally marches on down to the police station and she bursts open asking, what's up? What's going on here? But it's when Nikki gets to the police station that she was very confused. One of the first people she sees at the station is who? Paul. Paul, what are you doing here? Paul, what are you doing here? Nikki tries to talk to Paul, but she realizes Paul is in a shady ass corner talking to one of the police officers. As she's trying to reach out to Paul, one police officer would come to Nikki and explain to her the situation. He tells Nikki that, hey, look, this guy is claiming that you were supposed to deliver goods and you never delivered the goods. Now what this police officer was telling Nikki was that, yes, you're claiming that Paul was the one who was supposed to sign off and deliver on the goods, yes, but that's a lie. Nikki is told that, first of all, you capped because you signed documents to this nightclub owner and told him that you were going to deliver these goods and you never did. Nikki is very confused because she's like, I never signed any documents saying that. I never concluded that with anybody. Me and him agreed that Paul was the one who was supposed to deliver these goods. That's when this police officer produces documents with Nikki's signature, passport details. I even think there was a scan of her passport on that document, and he's just like, aren't you the one who signed this document? Is this not your signature, Miss Nikki, giving authorization for the delivery of these goods? Is this not it? Nikki is very confused at this point because she doesn't remember signing off on anything, because as I said, Paul was the one who was in charge of that place. She left that place knowing Paul was the one who was going to handle all of that. Now, this police officer says that she had actually signed off on all of this. And because she had signed off on all of this, the other guy had actually made payments with regards to the good itself. That's why they were all down at the station. Now, as Nikki is saying all of this, like, I didn't do this, Paul is the one who was supposed to sign off on all of this, I never signed off on anything. Now, as Nikki is looking at all of these documents and she's being told all of this, she quickly realizes that, wait, who could have used my documents and signed off on these? Like, who could have done this? And that's when she realized that way back when she was looking for her permit, when she was desperate for a permit, what did she do? She went out and she gave her passport to Paul. So Paul had access to all of her details, and it's at this point that she's clocking all of this. Paul is still there snitching to the police there in the back. She couldn't hear what he's saying, but she knew he was out there lying on his life. So Nikki quickly tries to reach out to Paul, but because by this time she doesn't still think Paul could have done anything to her. She's literally still trying to reach out to Paul, and she's just like, I think maybe to her she's thinking that maybe somebody got a hold of my documents or something. So she's like trying to reach out to Paul to ask him for help. She's like, hey, what could have happened, etc. Paul is not talking to this girl. He's not talking, in fact, Paul is doing he can't hear this babe. He's just like, it was in the midst of all this that Nikki realized that she had actually been scammed by Paul. Now, by this point, the chief sent Nikki home to go and collect the sound system so she can deliver it to the other nightclub owner. And And the issue was, even though they sent Nikki home to go and like get this stuff, Nikki couldn't get anything because, like I told you guys, Paul was the one who was actually in charge of the sound system. So he had the sound system. Nikki didn't have anything. So the police are telling Nikki to go back home and go and collect this sound system. And Nikki is just like, even if I go home, like, how am I going to help anybody? She gets home, but instead of like looking for a sound system that she clearly knows Paul has and he's now set her up, she decides to go out and talk to her neighbor and tell her neighbor about exactly what is happening so that she can ask her neighbor, like, is there anything that can be done? Can you help me? Etc. The neighbor tells her straight up that you're actually being scammed, and let me tell you something, this can get much worse. You need to go to Nairobi to find help. You need to actually flee this area because you might get arrested. Like, you might end up behind bars. So the neighbor gets her hooked up with a contact that she has all the way in Nairobi, and she tells her, like, if someone is gonna be able to get you out of this mess, it's this specific person. And the neighbor actually gives, you know, Miss Nikki her car so that she can be able to drive undetected from Mombasa to Nairobi. So Nikki decides she's gonna go and she's gonna literally shoot her shot so she can be able to get her life back, baby girl, because y'all ain't gonna lock me up. Nikki gets into the car and Moffat decides he's gonna stand beside her. So Moffat and Nikki decide to make the road trip all the way to Nairobi so that she doesn't get arrested. Now, the person that they were going to see in Nairobi was the Deputy Commissioner of Police. And Nikki's friend had called the deputy and told him that, like, hey, my friend is gonna be coming by soon. Please take care of her. There's, like, she's in a lot of problems right now. The trip that Nikki and Moffat took would actually take an average of 12 hours. You guys, it takes 12 hours to drive from Mombasa to Nairobi. That's crazy. And as Nikki and Moffat are making this drive, they're literally trying to basically make sense of all this, like what's literally going on, what's literally happening. And Moffat just keeps telling Nikki, like, I don't know why you are confused, honey. This is a scam. Paul is a scammer. Now, the two of them would finally reach Nairobi, and they would actually get to the Deputy Commissioner's house, to the Deputy Commissioner's office, and he would see them. Like, he allowed to see them because he was informed about their dilemma, about their little situation. And at the end of the day, he said he was going to help them, but you have to give me 70 pounds. 70 pounds is 7,000 Kenya shillings. Now, Nikki would give him the 70 pounds, but like I told you guys, Nikki literally had basically very little money left. So this 70 pounds was really very much like bearing on Nikki about to be homeless at this point because she didn't have any more money, and her only means of making money was renting out that sound system. And now Paul has a sound system and he's carried half a bloody idiot. You know what I mean? Yeah. The police commissioner did make good on his promise, and after being paid, he made a call to Mombasa and told the people down there to stop capping. Like, she's protected by me, don't touch that babe. So Nikki made her way all the way back to where she was in Mombasa. Nikki and Moffat would spend the next few days like just indoors, trying to just recuperate from everything that had happened. And the first few days were actually okay. Nikki says that everything was honestly fine, no police on their backs, and they were just like relaxing and, like, you know, basically getting over the entire traumatic ass events that had just taken place. Now, the first few nights were fine. However, after like a few days, very weird stuff started happening to Nikki and Moffat in their house. Nikki says that every like night at their house at a specific hour, the lights would start flickering, like on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And this is just how it started. However, a few days like into the nights flickering on and off at a specific hour, their house help literally ran away. The house help said like there was the weird stuff that was going on in that house was too much. Now at this point, the two of them decided to go into the town and just like have a chat with the locals and ask like what exactly is going on. And that's when they found out that Paul was actively like trying to judge these people because they evaded arrest. Apparently Paul is the one who ended up taking the fall for, you know, the whole delivery, non-delivery of goods, etc. And so he was like pretty pissed. So he had hired like all these like witchcraft people to go after Miss Ma'am and her man. So as Miss Girl hears this, she remembers the traumas she literally went through last time for having to like get herself cleansed, etc. And by this point, she doesn't even trust that entire process because literally Paul put them through it. And Miss Ma'am decided, you know what, let's literally move houses. Like, before I go and have to lay in a grave again, y'all can't pay me enough money. So the two of them decided to leave where they were and they moved to Malindi. As the couple decides to move, they actually would receive very good news. Nikki would quickly find out that she was pregnant for Moffat. Obviously, like, you know, having a baby is always a blessing, but the two of them were a bit stressed because they literally didn't have any more money. Like, the money that Miss Ma'am had come with from, you know, the UK was very much quickly running low. Nikki says that this was a very, very hard pregnancy because, for one, she says that where they moved to in Malindi barely had like any hospitals nearby. I don't know to what extent that's true. I don't know, but that's what she said. She says that the nearest hospital, like from where she lived, was actually 100 kilometers away from her house. Furthermore, she says there were like barely any, what are these things called? Pharmacies. Yeah, she said there weren't any pharmacies. Literally, at least there was a hospital 100 kilometers away. She says there were no pharmacies like close to where she lives. Another issue Nikki said she faced is that she really didn't have like friends and family around, because usually like women, obviously we get support from our friends, our families, etc. during such times. However, Nikki says because she like relocated and migrated all the way to Kenya against the will of like an advice like from a lot of her friends and family, she basically felt alone. She says she really did consider going back to the UK during this time because she was having like a really hard time being pregnant alone, you know, having limited access to like healthcare, etc. But she said she didn't want to go back to the UK like basically as a failure, so she just decided to like stick it out. And honestly, I applaud her because things weren't easy. Nikki says like at 4 months of like the pregnancy, she started having like cramps, like cramping pains. So she's having these pains and Nikki decided she was gonna stick it out because she literally had no money to be able to go to hospital. And mind you, the hospital was so far away, so Nikki was just like, I'm gonna see if I can like power through it. However, the pain would become like really and honestly and truly too much for Nikki, and it's at this point that her and Moffat made the decision to make the phone call to the clinic that was like basically 100 kilometers away from them. The person on the phone would tell the two of them that honestly speaking, this is not good, and she told them that if this continues, your madam will have to come in for an emergency cesarean section, and this would cost 500 pounds. Nikki didn't have 500 pounds anymore because, like I said, she had literally lost all her money trying to set up her nightclub, etc. And then she had to pay her last 70 pounds to Mr. Mans, who was the deputy commissioner of police. It was bad. It was really bad. Now, because of the fact that Nikki had no money, she decided to make a very drastic decision. Now, like I said, there was limited access to like, you know, good medical attention. Like I said, the first clinic was like 100 kilometers away, and like she had just been told, the price for those clinics was like 500, you know, pounds that she didn't have. However, Nikki actually knew of a local makeshift kind of hospital that the villagers had just thrown together and put together so they can be able to like go somewhere, and it had like volunteer doctors and nurses, according to what Nikki said. They weren't the best or anything, and they certainly were not like equipped, well, like facilitated and equipped the equipment to be able to carry out an emergency cesarean section, but this was the only place available for Nikki. Moffat would put Nikki into a taxi and they would make their way down to the makeshift hospital. Nikki says that as soon as she saw the hospital that Moffat had brought her to, she just knew, she just had a bad feeling. She says the first thing she saw was like just a group of people literally lined up outside of the hospital, like wailing and you know basically being and weeping in pain. And she says the first thing she thought to herself was, God, I can't have a surgery in a place like this. But lo and behold, that's where she was gonna have it. Now, Moffat insisted on like getting a very good doctor for Nikki, so the doctor that Nikki was given was like a well-known and reputable doctor that, you know, people knew and people trusted, and they had been told like, yes, this is a good guy, you have nothing to worry about. So Moffat made sure that his wife was like in good, safe hands. Nikki would then be put on like a metal trolley that she describes as like more of like a food cart rather than like a medical, you know, a trolley that's supposed to be used for medical purposes, and she was carted into the operating room. Now, Nikki says she could like see the stuff being organized like right in front of her. She says that obviously this did make her scared. Obviously, like seeing the size of the knife that's about to be used on you is like, I don't know about this one, guys. I don't know about this one. You know what I mean? I'm not laughing at her. I'm just saying like it's a bit scary. So understandably, Nikki was getting pretty panicked. Nikki would then be put on anesthesia. However, as soon as Nikki was put under like anesthesia, the surgeon that they had literally fought tooth and nail to get, the one who was like well reputable, well known, everybody knew the guy, everybody trusted the guy, he went home. He went home. Literally, as Nikki is going under, like, he made sure Nikki saw him and everything, and then he left. You guys, watu ni wakali. The guy said that he was tired and so he couldn't like perform any other surgeries for the day, so he just said, yeah, I'm going back to my house, bye. Anywho, Nikki would get another surgeon in the hospital who she actually hadn't met and who I don't think she would ever meet, and the guy would operate and do the cesarean section on Miss Nikki. Now Nikki says she actually woke up during the time that the surgery, I'm so sorry about the dogs, you guys, I can't do anything, I'm sorry. Anywho, now Nikki says she actually woke up during the surgery, like as it was ongoing, and she says she was like in agonizing pain and nobody literally knew that she was awake. Imagine how terrifying that is. That's pretty scary. But Nikki says that she honestly just wanted the surgery to be over. When Miss Nikki was finally like finished with the surgery, the doctor left, etc., she was taken down to like a room to relax. According to what Nikki says, she was still expelling her placenta. Now, if you guys didn't know, even me, I didn't know. Like when I read the expelling the placenta part, I was like, what is that? Apparently, when you give birth, you're actually like, what happens is like, you have to, like the placenta that you give birth with has to come out. Did you know I didn't know that? And I'm an entire adult and I didn't even know that the placenta has to come out when you give birth. Anywho, Nikki says that her placenta was not removed and so she was still bleeding. Apparently in some cases, if the placenta is not removed, the woman can die. Just wanted to add that. Anyway, all was well at the end of the day. Nikki managed to give birth to a healthy and beautiful baby girl who they named Saffron. But Nikki would actually have a long period of recovery. Nikki says she couldn't like walk for 3 months. Like she couldn't like go from here to like the kiosk. She literally had to sit in the house every single day for the next 3 months so that she could be healed. Furthermore, Nikki says that they really botched up her body. She says that like her lower abdomen like became a really serious place of insecurity for her because they had like cut her up and they didn't even sew her back like well, etc. Moffat says like he honestly would cry because of like what they had done to his wife. Now in the midst of all this, Nikki is honestly considering going back to the UK, and I can understand, like, you know, they've really messed up the surgery and, you know, she's just out of money now. But Nikki says she didn't want to go back to the UK as a failure and have to like face her family and friends with them telling her like, oh, see, we told you, you should have just stayed here, etc., etc. So she decides she's going to continue, you know, fighting the good fight, and she was gonna continue to try and get exactly, and that she was gonna continue to basically go out there and go and get that her dream, go and start that her nightclub business. And so after the 3 months when Nikki could finally walk again, she was back on her grind. Nikki had heard from, you know, her previous neighbors that the club Inferno where her and Moffat had met was actually up for rent again, and she was really excited because she honestly liked Club Inferno and it had like sentimental value to her. So she decided she was going to try heaven and hell to be able to rent out Club Inferno. Nikki would visit the venue, and by the end of the year that like she got pregnant and gave birth to her daughter and everything, she was living her dream. She had finally started up that club. She had finally, like, you know, proved that she could have done this, etc., etc. And her dream of being a nightclub owner living in Mombasa, Kenya, in the tropics with a successful business was going great. Now, because Nikki was so busy, she would delegate the care of her daughter to like aunties or like dadas, and she was full-time running the business. I don't know where Moffat was. I think Moffat was working with her, if I'm not mistaken, but everything was going great for the pair. Everything was going amazing for the pair, but not for long. Enter the abracadabra, the voodoo Don de comeback. The voodoo is back. Now, as the business is popping off, doing really well, it's a hit, the first thing that happens is that the watchman decides to all of a sudden quit. Now when Nikki and Moffat called the watchman like for a little meeting to ask like what's up, what's going on, like you literally can't just up and quit your job, like what's going on, the watchman would tell them the most weird story. The watchman would tell them like he would hear like sounds in the middle of the night during the time that he was working. Like he would hear like, you know, chanting sounds, etc. And he just said like he wanted no part to play in all of this, that Nikki and, you know, Moffat had like something coming for them, and basically the watchman said, I don't want to play this game. Here they just took it at face value until Nikki and Moffat started noticing the most weird phenomenon. People would actually come to the club and literally they would get to like the entrance of the club and then stop and decide they're not going to go into the club. On top of that, the drinks, like the people who used to supply the club with drinks, etc., literally just called Nikki up one day and told Nikki that, hey, we're not gonna be doing business with you anymore. We don't want to be in business with you anymore. And all of a sudden, Nikki's amazing life that she had finally gotten in her clutches just started disappearing and disseminating before her very, very eyes. Nikki now basically like asked Moffat like what could be happening, and also Moffat didn't know, because from what they could tell, like they hadn't changed anything particular within the business. They were still conducting business the way they had always done it. So this was such a drastic change. All of this bad luck would reach its peak when the police would come over to Nikki's club and literally arrest this lady at gunpoint. They arrested Nikki at gunpoint. They weren't even saying exactly what Nikki had done, but they literally came to the club, literally stuck a gun in Nikki's face and told Nikki to get into the bloody car with them. We're going down to the station. As soon as Nikki got down to the police station, she was taken to court. And she was actually not taken to like the main court. You know where people usually go, like the outside place where everybody can see what's happening? No. She was taken to the back. She was taken to the judge's chambers. What would a person be doing in the judge's chambers? Even lawyers, when you're summoned to like a chamber, it's a very, even for lawyers, I hear when they're summoned to like the judge's chambers, it's a very big deal. Like you just don't go there for going their sake. But that's where Nikki was taken. Nikki was then given an electric bill, claiming that she had literally gone months without paying the electric bill, and she had actually vandalized the place that she was renting. And according to the documents, these allegations are being made by the same woman that had literally agreed to rent her this place. Nikki was very confused, especially considering the fact that her landlady have never had issues. And the thing is, whenever there was issues, she would like be able to talk to, they would be able to talk to each other, etc. So this was very confusing for Nikki, and Nikki was just like, what's going on? I want to talk to the landlady, and she wasn't allowed. But do you know what they told her? They literally told Miss Nikki that, hey, you know what you can't do? You can produce £3,000 so that we can let you go right now. Anywho, Nikki obviously tells the judge that this is actually outrageous. I don't have that amount of money. I just started off my business. It just started doing well. Like, I don't have that money. She's trying to basically plead for her life, and the judge just says, I have to go home. Literally, I have to go home. And the judge basically stands up after she realized Nikki doesn't have any cash. The judge stands up and decides to leave, leaving Nikki and she reminds Nikki in the care of the police officers, and basically she tells them to like throw Nikki in a cell. Now Nikki was taken to a small room by 2 officers, and she was shoved into the small room with 2 other inmates. Now after all of this, she says that they waited in the room for some time, and then after a few like minutes, a big lorry came to pick them up. Nikki says they were then herded into the back of this lorry and paraded through the town as they were going to the actual prison that Nikki was going to stay in. Nikki hadn't even been given a sentence, you guys, but she's all of a sudden in jail. In jail. Anywho, Nikki is taken to prison, and she says that as she's like being taken to the streets again, she says the whole, you know, people were eyeing her because she was white, and it's like, what is this white woman doing going to jail? I refuse to believe that's why. But you know, everybody's allowed their opinion, so everybody's allowed their opinion, so I'm not going to be the girl to come and deny her experience. Maybe that's what it was, I don't know. But generally, from my experience, people look at inmates. It's just something they do. Now, Nikki says that when she got to the jail cell, she was really like traumatized, like to a whole new level. She said when she got there, she was ordered to first like strip butt naked. And after she stripped butt naked, she was like ordered to bend over and like spread her ass cheeks. You guys, what? She spreads her ass cheeks and a police officer comes to like look in her ass to see if she's like keistered any phone or any specific weapons in her ass that she could be able to use in jail. Gosh. Now, like I said, she was ordered to get naked. And remember when I told you guys that Nikki was really like, she really went through it when they did the cesarean section. Like, they really like botched her up. Like, they didn't do a good job according to what she said. Like, she was still very red. You know, she wasn't comfortable with that part of her body. And she says that when they ordered her to strip, the police officers at the cell, who were women, were laughing at Nikki, making fun of her body, and they were just being really mean to her with regards to like her appearance. On top of that, they were kind of being racist because they literally made fun of her, and they were like, you think this is Europe where you get to play PlayStation in jail? And then they were just like, this isn't that, like you better get used to how it is here or else we'll turn your white self black. I don't know why you guys think that sounds gangster. Y'all are bullies. You'd be surprised how many old people we have that are bullies. Now, Nikki says after she was now taken to like the cells, it got like, the situation got like much worse. She says she was put in like a cell with 20 women and she was forced to sleep on the floor. Yeah. So it was really bad. She said like the place was never actually clean, like it was barely ever cleaned. If it was cleaned, it was the inmates that cleaned it. People were like, you know, it wasn't nice. On top of that, she says like people had wounds, etc., like in the jail. You know, like after they've been beaten, etc., they're usually not taken to like hospitals and whatnot, and they have wounds and like flies are perching on the wounds, etc. So Nikki was really saying like the conditions were very unsanitary. On top of that, Mombasa is a very hot place, and so the cell having 20 women in it was not helping the situation of the heat, you know. On top of that, Nikki says there was a lot of like mosquitoes in the cell, and she just said like she was really scared of getting malaria and everything. So basically what I'm trying to get to is Nikki was having a very rough time during this time that she was in cell. She says one of her worst experiences during the time that she was actually in jail was when they were out like in the courtyard doing like their work, and literally one of these women and literally one of like the police officers came outside and she shouted Kaba. Now Nikki is a white woman from Britain. She doesn't know what Kaba means. You know what? Even leave alone that she's a white woman from Britain, so she wouldn't know what that means. I don't know what that means. So what you do when someone says Kaba is you squat and then you put your hands on your head to touch your head like this. So Nikki says she literally didn't know what Kaba meant. And so when this lady said Kaba, Nikki didn't know. So Nikki is just still there doing her yard work as soon as Kaba has been said. She says that this woman hit her like on her back until she squatted down. Like she noticed what everybody was doing and she squatted down. But the problem is, like I told you guys, Nikki had the cesarean section, and like because they botched up the surgery and everything, she literally couldn't be able to stay like squatted for a long time. Like, do you get what I mean? And I just want to put a disclaimer. When I say botched, I don't mean botched like, you know, she's fucked and everything. I just mean like they didn't do a good job. Like they didn't do the job the way they were supposed to do it, if you follow me. Anywho, so Nikki finally gets down, but she can't stay down for long, which leads to these people like continuously just beating her. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anywho, as all this is going on, Moffat is on the other side of the jail trying his best to help his baby girl. Moffat goes to talk to the magistrate that had thrown his wife in jail, and he gets a bond set for his babe, and so he's now trying to make up the money to get his babe released on bond. So finally Moffat did manage to get the money together. However, imagine when he took this money that he had struggled to get together to the magistrate, she literally refused to sign Nikki's release papers. And she just refused to see Moffat. So Moffat has the money, everything is ready to go, but he still can't get his wife out of the cell so she can come home to be with him and his daughter. The magistrate would go 10 bloody days without signing Nikki's release papers. Those are 10 days of her being told to Kaba, and for her to be laughed at by the inmates about her body and everything. Imagine 10 extra days. People are so mean and heartless, you know. Anywho, Nikki is finally released after the 10 days are over, and she goes home to her man Moffat. Nikki says that she honestly had been so traumatized, she just wanted to go home, if she's being honest. But her business kept her in Mombasa, Kenya. So after being out for some time, Nikki would decide to go and have a look at her business, see how it's doing, see how everything is going. As Nikki arrived there, imagine her business was closed down. And I don't think Moffat knew because he was way too busy trying to come up with the money for her bond. Literally, someone had packed Nikki's stuff up, packed up her entire club, and threw her stuff out. Nikki came back to a club that had nothing in it. Now, Nikki realizes that her club had been shut down, yes, but there were renovations that were ongoing on like the place that she had been running her club, like on the venue. And Nikki quickly realized that, oh my gosh, what's the renovations for? When she went to make inquiries, tell me why she wasn't told that the magistrate who had locked her up and refused to let her out for all those days was the new owner of the club. The new owner of the club. The new owner of the club. People are wicked. Nikki realizes that she had been played for idiot, and she honestly decided she was over it. She said she's going back to Britain. Nikki would decide to marry Moffat in 2003, and so with the two of them finally being married, etc., they would decide to go back to the UK together. They decided to move there together because Nikki was done, she was tired, she just wanted to have her family together all the way in England. But the sad part is Moffat and Nikki's marriage actually didn't last for long, and they ended up divorcing quite quickly after they got married. I'm very sorry about these dogs, they're very annoying. But hey, that is the story of Miss Nikki Roberts. Please tell me like where the first red flag was for you. I feel like for me, the first red flag was just deciding to like up and move to Kenya with like without any game plan of what is gonna happen. Like I feel like it was a very spontaneous decision, and spontaneous decisions are good sometimes, but like not like this, girl, you know. And I mean, it wasn't her fault. It really wasn't her fault. I feel like also we need to also hold like the respective folks accountable, because it wasn't her fault that she got robbed. Anyway guys, I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.